If we're going to talk seriously about attraction, about how you bring people into your orbit, not through tricks or gimmicks, but through genuine influence, you have to start by recognizing something most people overlook. Words are not just sounds that spill out of your mouth. They are instruments of reality itself. When you speak, you're not simply passing information. You are literally shaping how others perceive you, how they perceive themselves, and how they perceive the world you invite them into. Think about it. Civilization itself is built on words. Laws, contracts, declarations, promises, all of them are nothing but words, but without them society collapses into chaos. Your very identity rests on words. Your name is a word. Your reputation is a cluster of words that others whisper when you're not in the room. And attraction, whether romantic, professional, or social, is no different. The foundation of connection is the spoken word. You may think someone is pulled toward you because of looks or status, but those things fade quickly without the reinforcement of language. It is what you say and how you say it that sustains their attention. Most people underestimate this. They speak carelessly, as if words are disposable, as if they don't echo in the minds of others long after they're said. But the truth is, every word plants a seed. Some seeds grow into trust, admiration, and affection. Others grow into suspicion, resentment, and distance. If you want to attract anyone at all, you must first understand that language is not neutral. It is either working for you or against you. Consider how words frame reality. If I describe the same situation as a crisis versus an opportunity, I've already tilted the entire emotional landscape. One word pulls people into fear, the other into hope. When you interact with someone, your words set the stage for how they will feel in your presence. If your language conveys warmth, possibility, and respect, people are drawn in, often without realizing why. If your language conveys coldness, dismissal, or arrogance, people retreat, even if you never intended to push them away. There's also a psychological principle at work here that runs deeper than most people realize. Human beings are pattern-recognizing creatures. We interpret language not just at the surface level, but at the symbolic level. Words activate memories, associations, and emotions that go back to childhood. When someone hears, "You're important to me," or "I believe in you," it doesn't just register as information. It activates a longing to be seen and valued that every person carries. The attraction that follows is not to you as a performer, but to you as the one who dared to acknowledge what others desperately wish to believe about themselves. This is why careless words can be so destructive. A sarcastic comment, a dismissive tone, or a thoughtless remark can shatter trust in seconds. You may forget what you said, but the other person will remember it for years, because words have the power to wound as much as they have the power to heal. If you're careless with your language, don't be surprised when you repel people instead of attracting them. But the reverse is also true, and it's far more powerful. When your words are aligned with genuine intention, when you speak from a place of honesty and respect, they create a gravitational field. People lean in because they feel safe, they feel understood, and they feel elevated. The most magnetic individuals in history, from leaders to teachers to spiritual guides, all understood this. They didn't rely on manipulation, they relied on words that clarified, inspired, and revealed something true about life. So the first step in learning to attract anyone is to take words seriously. Recognize their weight. Train yourself to speak with intention, to choose words that frame reality in a way that uplifts and strengthens rather than diminishes and fractures. This doesn't mean becoming overly cautious or robotic, it means becoming conscious. Instead of blurting out the first thing that comes to mind, you pause and ask, will this build or will this break? Will this open a door or will it close one? When you begin to speak with that level of awareness, something remarkable happens. People notice. They may not consciously articulate it, but they feel it. They sense that when you speak, you mean something, that your words are not empty air but living forces. And because so few people actually live this way, your presence becomes rare and valuable. Attraction follows naturally because you've distinguished yourself from the background noise of empty talk. You don't need to be a poet or a philosopher to do this. You simply need to understand that every word counts, that words are not ornaments but tools, and that through them, you are constantly sculpting the reality others experience in your presence. If you neglect this responsibility, you fall into mediocrity. But if you embrace it, you step into influence, connection, and genuine magnetism. So let me leave you with this thought. Every time you open your mouth, you are either building a bridge or burning one. Choose your words as if they matter, because they do. And when you realize that, when you treat your language as the sacred power it is, You'll find that people are drawn to you not because of tricks or gimmicks, but because you've become someone whose words carry the weight of truth. And truth, spoken sincerely, is irresistible. If the first truth about attraction is that words shape reality, the second truth is even more fundamental. No arrangement of words, no clever phrase, no secret technique will matter if it's not rooted in authenticity. People often want shortcuts, 4 words, 5 steps, 7 tricks to make someone like you. And yes, language is powerful, but if it's used as a mask, if it's wielded as manipulation rather than as genuine expression, it collapses. People can sense pretense more sharply than most realize. They may not consciously identify it, but something in their nervous system, in their intuition, warns them that the person in front of them is not being fully honest. And once that seed of doubt is planted, attraction dissolves. Authenticity, then, is the ground on which everything else rests. Think about it. What is it that makes someone magnetic? It isn't that they're flawless. In fact, people are rarely drawn to perfection. What draws us in is congruence, the sense that what a person says aligns with what they actually believe, that their words match their actions, that their presence is an expression of who they really are. That kind of alignment radiates confidence and stability. It communicates without needing to be said, "I can be trusted," and trust is the invisible currency of all attraction. Now, let's get to the heart of it. Why do so many people struggle with this? Because authenticity requires vulnerability. To be genuine is to risk rejection. If you show your real thoughts, your real desires, your real feelings, someone might dismiss them, or worse, dismiss you. And so people put on masks. They say what they think others want to hear. They adopt tones of confidence that they don't feel. They memorize lines that don't belong to them. It may work briefly, but only briefly, because at some point the truth leaks out. The facade cracks, and when it does, the disappointment is far greater than if the person had simply been honest from the beginning. Attraction rooted in manipulation is always unstable. It requires constant effort to maintain, constant calculation, constant fear of being found out. But attraction rooted in authenticity, though it may take longer to form, becomes unshakable. When people realize you are who you appear to be, that you mean what you say, that your kindness isn't a performance, that your interest isn't a tactic, they relax, they lower their defenses. They allow themselves to be drawn toward you because they sense that being in your presence doesn't require them to play games either. And this points to a deeper psychological truth. Human beings long for authenticity in others because they long for it in themselves. Most people are caught in a daily performance, adjusting themselves to fit expectations, hiding the parts they fear will be rejected. When they encounter someone who is unapologetically real, it is both shocking and liberating. It's like oxygen in a room that had grown stale. And so they are drawn in, not because of manipulation, but because they feel, maybe for the first time, that they too are allowed to be real. That's the power of authenticity. It doesn't just attract people to you, it awakens something in them. But let me be clear, authenticity does not mean blurting out every thought that crosses your mind. It doesn't mean using honesty as an excuse for cruelty or irresponsibility. True authenticity is disciplined. It is the alignment of your words, your actions, and your values. It requires knowing yourself well enough to speak truthfully without losing compassion, to reveal yourself without collapsing into chaos. It is not reckless exposure, it is courageous transparency. And courage, when embodied, is universally attractive. This is why the most influential people in history were rarely manipulators, though many tried to imitate them through manipulation. The real power belonged to those who spoke from the depth of conviction. They weren't flawless, in fact, many had glaring imperfections. But their words carried weight because they were authentic. They weren't pretending to believe what they said. They believed it. And that belief resonated like a bell in the hearts of those who heard them. When you speak with authenticity, people may not always agree with you. Some may even reject you. But the ones who are drawn to you will be drawn deeply, and the connection that forms will be real. You won't have to calculate every interaction or fear being exposed because there is nothing to expose. You're not playing a role. You're living as yourself. And that freedom, that consistency, creates a kind of magnetism that no trick can replicate. So ask yourself honestly, are you trying to attract people through manipulation or through authenticity? Do your words reflect what you truly mean or what you think will get a reaction? If it's the latter, you may gain attention, but it will slip away as quickly as it came. If it's the former, you may face rejection, but those who remain will remain because they see the real you, and that is the only attraction worth having. In the end, authenticity is not just a method, it is a commitment. It is a decision to live without the exhausting weight of pretending. And here is the paradox: when you stop trying to manipulate people into liking you and you start being genuine instead, that's when people are most drawn to you. Because nothing is more attractive than someone who no longer needs to be anything other than themselves. If authenticity is the foundation of attraction, then resonance is the force that carries it into the hearts of others. You see, human beings are not logical creatures first. We like to believe we are, but the truth is that beneath reason sits something far older and far more powerful: the deep, unconscious desires that drive us. Every one of us longs for recognition, for safety, for meaning. These are not luxuries, they are hardwired into the human psyche. And when your words touch those places, when they resonate with those primal needs, you create a connection that is nearly impossible to ignore. Think about recognition. To be seen is one of the most fundamental human desires. From childhood, we crave the gaze of our parents, the acknowledgement that we matter. That craving never goes away, it merely evolves. Adults still ache for it, though they may disguise it behind ambition, achievement, or pride. When you speak words that acknowledge someone's value, not in a manipulative sense, but sincerely, you strike at the core of that need. A simple, genuine recognition of who someone is can feel like water to a soul that has been wandering in a desert. And people are drawn to those who see them because so few ever do. Then there's safety. Every relationship, every connection is haunted by the shadow of betrayal. People carry wounds, times when they trusted and were hurt, times when they opened up and were mocked or dismissed, and so they walk through life guarded. If your presence and your words communicate that you are safe, that you won't weaponize their vulnerability, that you won't exploit their weakness, you dismantle those defenses. You create a psychological refuge. Attraction thrives in that environment because the nervous system itself relaxes in your presence. People feel they can breathe, and they come closer without even thinking about why. And of course, meaning. Human beings can endure immense suffering if they believe it has meaning, but even the most comfortable life becomes unbearable if it feels meaningless. When your words suggest purpose, when you connect with someone in a way that reminds them their life is not random, that their struggles matter, that they are part of something bigger, you offer them one of the most powerful gifts possible. People are not merely drawn to those who make them feel good in the moment, they are drawn to those who make them feel significant in the grand scheme of things. Attraction deepens when it resonates with the human hunger for meaning. Now, the danger here is to think of resonance as a trick, a formula. Say this phrase to tap into recognition, say that phrase to trigger safety. That's not how it works. If it's not genuine, it fails. Because the unconscious mind, the part of us that detects threat and truth long before the rational brain catches up, cannot be fooled for long. Real resonance comes not from reciting lines, but from genuinely caring about the recognition, safety, and meaning of the person you're speaking with. It's about speaking from a place where you yourself have wrestled with those needs. If you've sought recognition and found it hollow, if you've craved safety and been betrayed, if you've longed for meaning and discovered it in the struggle, that experience infuses your words with a gravity that cannot be faked. This is why the most compelling speakers, leaders, and even friends are those who speak not merely with knowledge, but with lived understanding. They resonate because they're not hovering above the human condition, they're in it. Their words vibrate at the same frequency as the listener's pain and hope, and so the connection is immediate. It's not charisma in the shallow sense. It's the resonance of shared humanity, the recognition that this person understands me because they've lived what I've lived. The practical implication is simple, but not easy. If you want your words to resonate, you must learn to listen, not the passive kind of listening where you wait for your turn to speak, but the kind where you attune yourself to what the other person is actually communicating beneath the surface. People reveal their longing for recognition, safety, and meaning in subtle ways, through tone, through hesitation, through the stories they tell. If you train yourself to notice, you'll discover opportunities to respond in ways that land at the deepest level. And when you respond with sincerity, resonance occurs. Resonance is what transforms authenticity from something admirable into something magnetic. Authenticity says, "This is who I am." Resonance adds, "And I see who you are." That's the moment attraction stops being shallow and becomes profound. Because it's no longer about performance or masks. It's about two human beings meeting at the level of their most fundamental needs. And in that meeting, trust blooms, connection deepens, and the gravitational pull between you and the other person strengthens. So remember this: people are not drawn to you because you dazzle them with cleverness. They are drawn because, through your words, you awaken something ancient in them. You make them feel seen, safe, and significant. And when you do that, not once, but consistently, you create bonds that endure. Attraction then is no longer fragile or fleeting. It becomes the natural byproduct of living and speaking in harmony with what every human heart longs for. The truth is simple: to resonate with others, you must first resonate with truth yourself. Speak from that place, and your words will not just be heard, they will be felt. And when words are felt, they are never forgotten. We've been circling around this idea that words are not only sounds, but forces that shape reality, forces that can open or close the deepest parts of the human heart. And we've established that if those words aren't authentic, they collapse under the weight of their own insincerity. We've also seen that resonance is essential. Words must touch the fundamental longings for recognition, safety, and meaning. But all of that points to a final truth. There are certain words, simple, ordinary words, that become extraordinary when spoken at the right time, with the right intention, from the right depth of character. These are the words that unlock connection. The temptation, of course, is to treat these words as a formula, as if you could memorize them, toss them out casually, and instantly attract anyone you want. But that is precisely what would strip them of their power. Words do not work like spells, they work like keys. And a key only matters if it matches the lock. You can have the most finely crafted key in the world, but if you're trying to open the wrong door, it will do nothing. The 4 words I'm speaking about only matter if they're rooted in authenticity, only matter if they resonate with truth, only matter if they're spoken from the kind of self-awareness and integrity we've already discussed. So what are these words? In essence, they're variations of one theme. I understand you. Think of the weight those words carry. Think of how rare it is to actually hear them and believe them. In a world filled with noise, filled with people projecting their own thoughts, opinions, and insecurities, to have someone pause, look you in the eye, and communicate, I understand you, is almost revolutionary. It bypasses surface-level interaction and goes directly to the heart. Those 4 words signal recognition. You're not invisible. They signal safety. You're not alone. And they signal meaning. Your experience matters. When you say them sincerely, you're not only communicating empathy, you're validating existence itself. That's why they have the power to attract, not in a manipulative way, but in a deeply human way. They create the conditions in which another person feels both seen and valued, and that is the very soil in which trust and connection grow. Now, some will hear this and think, that's too simple. That can't possibly be the secret. But that's the point. The most profound truths are always simple, not because they're shallow, but because they cut through complexity. I understand you is not a trick, it's a mirror held up to the soul. But it only works if it's true. If you haven't done the work of listening, if you haven't cultivated the humility to set aside your ego long enough to actually perceive the other person, then the words will ring hollow. And hollow words repel. They sound flattering on the surface, but they leave a bitter aftertaste because the unconscious mind recognizes the gap between appearance and reality. That's why this principle is demanding. To be able to say those words and mean them requires real effort. It requires learning to listen with more than your ears, to attend to nuance, to notice what someone is trying to say even when they struggle to find the language. It requires you to step outside of yourself, to momentarily suspend your own concerns, and to enter into the experience of another person. That's not easy, but it's rare precisely because it's difficult, and that rarity is what makes it magnetic. When you practice this consistently, people will notice something about you. They may not articulate it clearly, but they will feel it. When I'm with this person, I feel understood. That feeling is priceless. It doesn't just generate attraction in the shallow sense of charm. It generates loyalty, trust, and deep connection. People are drawn toward the ones who understand them because so few ever truly try. And the paradox is that when you stop obsessing over how to make people like you, and instead focus on truly understanding them, that's when they begin to like you most. The 4 words, then, are not just a phrase, they are a practice. They're a reminder of the posture you must take toward others if you want to attract them in a way that is real and lasting. To speak them authentically is to commit yourself to perceiving beyond the surface, to valuing the humanity of the person in front of you, to seeing not just what they project, but what they are. And when you do that, the words themselves carry a weight far greater than their syllables. They become transformative. So don't think of this as magic. Think of it as discipline. Think of it as the habit of aligning your speech with authenticity and your attention with empathy. Because when those elements come together, when you understand the power of words, when you live authentically, when you resonate with the deepest human needs, and when you finally speak with the authority of someone who has truly listened, those 4 words will no longer be a technique. They will be truth. And truth, when spoken in love, has an almost gravitational pull. So let me leave you with this: attraction is not about performance. It's not about tricking people into liking you. It's about becoming the kind of person who can sincerely say, I understand you, and mean it. If you can do that, if you can live that, you will never struggle to draw people toward you, because human beings are irresistibly drawn to those who make them feel understood. That's the key. That's the doorway. And that's the challenge. At the end of the day, the power to attract others is not hidden in tricks, appearances, or rehearsed lines. It's found in the courage to be real, the discipline to listen, and the willingness to understand. People are starving for authenticity, for recognition, for meaning, and for safety. And when you meet those needs with sincerity, you become magnetic without even trying. So carry this with you. Every interaction is an opportunity to either deepen connection or to let it slip away. Choose words that build, live with integrity, and let your presence communicate again and again, I understand you. If you do, you won't just attract people, you'll transform them. And in the process, you'll transform yourself.